me some ice. Skin me a peach and save the fuzz for my pillow. Poach me a prawns, talk to me nice. You got to wine me anytime. Yeah, I'm getting hungry. Peel me a grape.
I'm Laura Bonicelli, and we are cooking with Italian style. It's not always fast, it's not always easy, and it's not always Italian. We use the freshest and finest ingredients that we can find and afford, and we not only savor the meals we make, but we savor making them. That's cooking with Italian style. This week, we're making risotto with tomato, basil, and homemade ricotta. Let's get cooking. We're starting with our ricotta, and what I have here is a piece of cheesecloth that I've placed in a colander. I've doubled it, and I'm just using some clamps from my office to hold it secure. When you pour the liquid off of the ricotta, it's basically a curds and whey, so you'll want to pour the liquid off and strain it. It can pull the cheesecloth along with it, so that's why I'm clamping it. You could use clothespins for this as well. So I'll set that aside, and then for the actual ricotta, I have a half a gallon of whole milk here. This milk is pasteurized but not ultra pasteurized. And we also have cream, same thing, pasteurized, not ultra pasteurized, and then I've got some buttermilk. The buttermilk is what actually makes this all happen. You need to use some sort of acid, and the buttermilk is the acid. I'm actually making a half a recipe. I just don't need that much ricotta on hand for this particular dish. Okay, so that is a half a gallon, and then this is my buttermilk, 2 cups. Buttermilk, 1 cup of heavy cream. It's getting a little splashy. And about 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And then I'm just going to stir this up, and I'm going to put it on the stove at a low simmer and bring it just up to a simmer, not to a boil. Very slowly up to a simmer, and then I let it continue to simmer for about 5 minutes until it reaches 170, roughly thereabouts. The reason it's slow, you do it slowly, is because it can scorch very easily, and also you just need to give it time to form its little curds, which it has done very nicely. Now, what I'm going to do is turn the heat off and let it rest for 10 minutes so it can continue to form the curds, and then we'll strain it. So what we have now is our beautiful ricotta. I drained the majority of the liquid off in the sink, and now I've set it in a bowl to drain further, and the longer it sits, the firmer it will get, and we're going to let this go for 45 minutes to an hour. There's absolutely no reason to not make fresh ricotta. It is so easy and it's so much better than what you get in a container from the store. So please make this recipe. And now we are going to move on to our risotto. So every risotto has basically 4 elements to it, even though they are sometimes switched out. So the first thing is the sofrito, which in this case is onions and celery, which will be sauteed very slowly in olive oil and butter. So some combination of vegetables that are sauteed in oil and butter. And then the rice. It doesn't always have to be rice, but typically it is. This is an arborio. But I've seen risotto made with lentils and with different types of rices. So it doesn't have to just be rice. Then the broth. This is a chicken broth. I sometimes use vegetable broth. And then whatever flavors it, that's the 4th element. And in this case, it's going to be tomatoes and basil that we're going to season with a little red wine, salt, pepper, Parmesan cheese, more wine. So anyway, so what I'm going to do now is get these vegetables for a sofrito, sauteing in 2 tablespoons of olive oil in which I'm going to melt a tablespoon of butter. So you can see my vegetables are beautifully translucent. They've been cooking for about 15 minutes, but they're not brown. And what these are going to do is practically melt into the rice. It is just heavenly, but you really can't, they're not crunchy at all, so you really can't tell they're there. So now, these are perfect, so I'm going to add in roughly 1.5 cups of arborio rice, and I'm going to stir to coat that. And at the same time, I'm going to turn the heat up. And here comes the fun part. Now, just want to make sure that the rice is completely coated with the oil and butter. And then I'm going to add in about 1 cup of wine, maybe a little bit more. So in the recipe I was talking about that I got in the cookbook from Italy. It said a glass of wine, so some wine, about a cup. My chicken broth, which is actually stock I make here at home every week. And I'm going to add a kind of a small ladle, about a ladle and a half in there. And this is the key to risotto, is it's not like a rice that you would stick on a pot, in a pot and add water or broth and put a lid on and let it go for 20 minutes. This is, you add the ladle, you let it cook down, you add the ladle, you let it cook down. And the point of that is that it brings the starch out, and that's why risotto is so creamy and wonderful. Okay, we're on our third ladling of warm stock. And you can see it's already becoming creamy. We'll let that cook down, and while that's doing that, I'm going to work on my tomatoes and getting my ricotta prepared. So we have our tomatoes and basil here. This is 2 cups of tomatoes, little cherub tomatoes, and actually what I did was squeezed the seeds out of them, and a good handful of ripped up basil. And to that, I'm going to, a couple tablespoons or so of olive oil. And I think I said red wine. I didn't mean that. I meant red wine vinegar. And a good glug of that. Perfect. And some salt and pepper. And we're just going to stir that up and let that sit for a while the risotto is finishing. And then our fresh ricotta. I took about a cup of it, and it's been draining for about an hour, so it's actually nice and dry and will be perfect in the risotto. And this is a teaspoon of red pepper flakes and a teaspoon of oregano. And I'll put that in and stir that up. 3/4 of the way done with the arborio. So we're going to take our tomatoes and basil and put 3/4, 2/3 of the mixture into the rice. Stir that around. And then more of the warm stock, and we'll keep cooking it. Okay, we are ready to go. I'm going to turn my heat off, and I'm going to add in to this beautiful mixture, which smells incredible, by the way, about a cup of Parmesan. 4 to 5 tablespoons of butter, and I know that looks like a lot. You can do less, but I love butter, and I'm going to just get that moving in here a little bit. And then, okay, I'm going to let this sit, obviously, to let the butter melt, and we'll stir it again. And then our ricotta that's seasoned. Now, you notice that I did not salt the rice in any way while I was cooking it. That's because there's salt in the butter, and you don't want to get it too salty. And actually, usually this turns out to be just about perfect without any additional salt. So we'll just let this sit, let the butter melt, stir it up, and we're going to plate our gorgeous risotto. Basically scoop it up. All the butter and cheese and ricotta are all in there, smelling fabulous. Okay. Maybe just a little bit more. Okay. Then, on top of that, we're going to take our reserved tomatoes and basil and put some of them on the top. A little off to the side, like so. And on top of that, nice sprinkling Parmesan cheese, just to finish it off. Just a little more fresh basil, ripped, just to finish off our garnish. Beautiful. I really hope you enjoy making this risotto, homemade ricotta, and cooking with Italian style. Buon appetito!